The International Criminal Court has just issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, accusing them of war crimes in Gaza, and also for a top Hamas commander, also known as Mohammed Deif, who is believed to be dead. The court says it found reasonable grounds to believe the prime minister bears criminal responsibility for war crimes, including starvation as a method of warfare. And it rejected Israel's challenge of the court's jurisdiction over the matter. CNN's Nick Robertson joins us now from Jerusalem. Nick, what more can you tell us?
Well, this is a very, very significant escalation. It was first announced by Karim Khan, the ICC chief prosecutor, back in May, that he was going to seek to request arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, who was the defense minister at the time, as well as three other senior Hamas officials, including Mohammed Deif, Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar, the other. Those three are all dead. Deif believed to have been killed in July, so unclear why they've issued an arrest warrant now for him. But by overturning Israel's rejection of the jurisdiction and the allegations by the court, this clears the way for something very, very significant, which Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel have never, ever faced before. These are very, very serious charges and allegations, as you read them out there, that the court believes they have grounds to believe that he bears criminal responsibility for war crimes, as you said, including starvation as a method of warfare and of crimes against humanity, of murder, persecution, and of other crimes. These are very, very serious allegations. These are not the sorts of allegations that the Prime Minister has faced before. When the ICC first made these statements back in May, the Prime Minister's office said that they were absurd, that they were false, and that they were a distortion of reality. It is something that back then the Prime Minister took very, very seriously. He has been in meetings today with the US mediator Amos Hochstein, talking about the possibility of a ceasefire with Hezbollah in Lebanon to the north. But this is absolutely now going to come front and center of the Prime Minister's attention here.
So this is very significant, Nick, but then what potentially could be next? Is this an issue of, depending on where Netanyahu were to travel, he could be apprehended, or is he asked to voluntarily cooperate?
Yeah, this is, it's uncharted territory for the Prime Minister. Certainly, we understand the legal implications for all the countries that support the ICC. These are countries that have signed what's known as the Rome Statute. 124 countries have signed up to the Rome Statute. That includes most European countries. There are other leaders, current and former, like Bashir of Sudan, who has essentially been on the lam from the ICC for several years since they issued an arrest warrant for him. An arrest warrant issued just in the past year or so for President Vladimir Putin of Russia, who continues to run his country and fight the war in Ukraine. But we have seen, in the case of Vladimir Putin, that there are countries that he has avoided visiting, like South Africa, for a BRICS summit, where potentially, because South Africa is a signatory to the Rome Statute, he could have technically been arrested and taken to The Hague. So will the same fate or limitations on travel face Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? It appears absolutely so. If he were to set foot today in the Netherlands or in the UK or in France, all signatories of the Rome Statute, he would be, or those countries at least would be obligated to arrest him and turn him over to the ICC.
All right, and now we want to give you an update on this breaking news. The Israeli Prime Minister's office has just responded to the International Criminal Court's arrest warrants. Benjamin Netanyahu's office calls the warrants for him and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant absurd. The statement says Israel utterly rejects the absurd and false actions and accusations against it by the International Criminal Court, which is a politically biased and discriminatory body. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will not yield to pressure, will not back down, and will not retreat until all the goals of the war set by Israel at the start of the campaign are achieved, end quote.
Now we are following developments out of northern Gaza, where one medical official says Israel launched deadly strikes overnight on the city of Beit Lahia. A director of the Kamal Adwan Hospital says 65 bodies have been pulled from the rubble. He says doctors and medical staff are digging with their bare hands because there are no rescue teams and no ambulances to provide assistance. And he expects the death toll to rise. He's making a desperate request to international organisations to bring in much-needed medical supplies. Meanwhile, the US has vetoed a UN Security Council resolution that called for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire in Gaza.
Will those in favour of the draft resolution contained in document S/2024-835 please raise their hand? Those against?
Well, only the US voted against the resolution on Wednesday. Ambassador Robert Wood said the US has made clear it could not support a ceasefire that failed to secure the release of hostages still being held by Hamas. Palestinian officials condemned the veto, saying the move only emboldens Israel to continue its crimes against innocent civilians. CNN's Paula Hancock's following live developments for us from Abu Dhabi. And I guess underscoring the need for this ceasefire, Paula, if we can just go back, is what happened overnight in northern Gaza. By all accounts, an incredibly deadly and bloody night for Palestinians.
Yeah, Christina, this latest strike, which has claimed many lives, happened in Beit Lahia. This is in the northern part of Gaza. It's an area which has been, for those who have been living there, say it has been under siege for about 6 weeks now, since the Israeli military decided that they needed to carry out further military operations there because they believed that Hamas was regrouping in the area. So we have seen some very deadly strikes. We have seen some desperate messages from Kamal Adwan Hospital, for example, saying that they don't have what they need to be able to save lives. And this is what we're hearing again. After an airstrike hit a building near that hospital, the director of the hospital says some 200 people were sheltering there, he believes, or has been told at the time of the airstrike, and at least 65 people have been killed at this point. Now, he says that those are bodies that are brought into the hospital. They are also receiving injured, but he says that death toll is more than likely to rise. They don't have heavy equipment in this area. The Gaza Civil Defense is unable to operate in this area, and he says that doctors and medical staff are using their bare hands to try and find further casualties within the rubble itself. Now, we have asked the IDF about this strike specifically, but what they have said about previous strikes in this area is that this is where Hamas is operating, and they have been calling for civilians to evacuate the area. We heard from the IDF, they believe last week, they believed that in the previous weeks they had killed some 1,000 Hamas militants and detained 1,000 more. For those on the ground, though, it is a desperate situation. The director of Kamal Adwan Hospital telling us that there isn't a single ambulance in northern Gaza, and that at this point all they can do and all they have been able to do is offer first aid. They don't have the surgeons, the medical supplies to be able to offer any more. And certainly those injuries, he says, that are coming in need far more than first aid. Christina?
Yeah, it is truly a desperate situation. Paula Hancock's there live from Abu Dhabi. Thank you.